Welcome, everyone, to this Wednesday night edition of Monday Match Analysis. This is the risk you run of putting the when the show happens in the title of the show. You end up looking like an idiot, as I do right now. Wednesday night, but it's Monday Match Analysis right now. Better late than never, right? So we have a show. Last week, Barcelona, Rafa Nadal, once again, absolutely tearing through the competition, ripping through the draw. He actually had a bagel set in against every single opponent he played in Barcelona until the final, where he met Stefanos Tsitsipas, the subject of this video, and he was unable to bagel the Greek, who, by the way, is the first Greek man to make a final since 1973, if I'm not mistaken. Only 19 years of age, and this year he's really having a good year. Although he hasn't really introduced himself to the world until this tournament, Barcelona, incredible tournament where he beat Schwartzman, crushed Schwartzman, which is incredibly impressive. Beat Dominic Thiem in straight sets, beat Pablo Carreno Busta, ultimately fell to Nadal. Incredible run in Barcelona, but his match record all in all this year is 11-10. Pretty impressive for a guy who is not playing all challengers at this point. Played a lot of tour level events. That's an impressive record. He's broken into the top 50, and did I mention he's only 19 years old? So this is definitely a guy who's worth talking about right now. And these happen to be my first impressions of him. Although he has picked up some pretty good wins in some bigger tournaments. He did beat Richard Gasquet earlier. That one comes to mind. But this was pretty much the first time that I gave him a close look. I watched the Dominic Thiem match, and I watched the Nadal match, so I'm pretty much going off of those two matches. Before I get into his game in depth, I think that just as a whole, in the Nadal final, he didn't show his best stuff just because I felt like he was really pressing. Now, he could have shown his best stuff and still gotten killed by Nadal, because that's how good Nadal is, but I really do feel like he didn't really show his game. So if you just watched the Nadal match and didn't watch the team match, for example, I feel like you didn't really see the true Stefanos Tsitsipas. I just think he was pressing. And I'm going to talk about margin a little bit later in this video, because I don't think he ever gives himself a lot of margin. He gets away with it because his placement is so good. But in the Nadal match, he kind of took it to the next level, and he was trying to make everything too perfect. That's what happens when you are intimidated by your opponent's offensive prowess. Is you're trying to hit on a shot-by-shot basis a quality of shot that is higher than you would normally go for, and that is really too high for you to realistically maintain consistency. So that's what I saw in the Nadal match. If you notice, like, Nadal didn't actually hit that many winners in that match, which is a testament to Tsitsipas's quality of shot. At the same time, he made too many errors, and I don't feel like that's his identity. From what I saw earlier in the tournament, this is a guy who, at least on clay, is able to limit his errors really, really well. That's why he beat Dominic Thiem. I mean, Dominic Thiem should be able to outmuscle a guy like Tsitsipas at this juncture, at least, in both of their careers. Thiem is so much stronger than Stefanos, but Thiem made a lot of errors and gave a lot of gifts, and Tsitsipas gave Thiem nothing. And this is a complaint I have with a lot of the younger players as a whole. And I want to make this point just before I get in depth on Tsitsipas. A lot of these younger players are not as steady as I'd like them to be. They do not have what Murray has and Djokovic has and Nadal has. I'd say a guy like Chung, a guy like Coric on his forehand, and certainly Dominic Thiem. Those guys come to mind as guys who are great athletes, great movers, can grind in a long rally, yet aren't steady enough. They just don't have the steadiness, at least at this point, and it's still early for all of them. They are not as steady as they should be. I just want to see these guys play steadier. You look at a guy like Shapovalov, doesn't need to be as steady because, this is a guy who needs to stay on the attack. He needs to play offensive. Kyrgios, same thing, right? So these guys don't need to be as steady. But if you're a guy like Chung or Dominic Thiem, I mean, you're a fantastic athlete. You can play long rallies. Don't make errors, especially on clay. And especially if you're a guy like Dominic Thiem who prides himself on his clay court play. You got to be steadier. So that's just an aside. Let's get into Tsitsipas. I want to break him down shot by shot. I'm going to start with his forehand because it was love at first sight. There's our beautiful thumbnail. Oh, wait, no, that's not our thumbnail. That's our thumbnail. See, beautiful. Anyway, I just gave you a sneak peek of what I graded his forehand, but hopefully you didn't see it. God, I really love the forehand, and a lot of people are going to talk about his backhand because it's pretty, right? And this is true for a lot of one-handers, like Stan Wawrinka. Wawrinka's backhand is beautiful, and he's got a great one-handed backhand. But what's the better shot, guys? What is the better shot? To me, forehand. Wawrinka's forehand is slightly better than his backhand. We're going to pay more attention to his backhand because it's pretty, and, we all love one-handers. I'm no exception. I have a two-hander. Do I wish I had a one-hander? Sure. In my dreams, do I have a one-hander? Yes. I think that's most of us. Just because of how it looks, because that's how we are. But if you really get down to it, the forehand is really what we should be focusing on. By the way, the only guy who I would say has actually a better one-handed backhand than his forehand is Gasquet. Gasquet is a guy where the strength of his game is his one-handed backhand. But for a lot of other guys, we love to talk about their one-handers, but that's not the strength of their game. And with Wawrinka, it's close, but I think his forehand's a little better. I wonder if people disagree with me on that. But I think it's a little bit more versatile, and he does a little bit more damage with it on a regular basis. So what really stood out to me about Tsitsipas' forehand was the placement. It really blew me away. He was able to hit close to the line with consistency. It seemed like he could put it wherever he wanted to put it. And not only could he do that, but he could change direction. And if you look at his swing, it's pretty short, and he doesn't have much of a load up. And what I mean is, I guess he keeps his racket very close to his through his hitting zone. I'm trying to explain this. It'd obviously be a lot more easier to demonstrate. But his take back, very close to his hitting zone, his contact point. So as a result, I guess the best way to put it is his forehand is really short. At the same time, he doesn't really sacrifice the pop. So this is a lesser well-known guy. But if you look at Adrian Manarino's forehand, very short, but doesn't really have the pop. Because it's short, he's able to change direction really well and place the ball really well. I think Tsitsipas does that really, really well. At the same time, he's got way more pop. His placement kind of reminds me of Djokovic on his forehand. Djokovic at his best. Djokovic can really put it wherever he wants. Tsitsipas could put it wherever he wanted this week. I was super impressed. He didn't seem to give himself, and I mentioned this earlier, a lot of margin. He doesn't seem to give himself a lot of margin. He hits so close to the lines, but he seems to do so with an incredible consistency. So on my graphic, I say that his forehand gets an A, but I have it broken down in more detail in my notes. His placement gets an A+. The power is a B+. Like I said, plenty of pop. Consistency A-. Really didn't miss a lot all week. Variation is an A. He can mix up his spins, which is really good. Very important in my opinion. I think, I saw him hit some heavier, loopier topspin shots when necessary, especially when he's trying to defend. That's very important. But when he was trying to dictate with his forehand, he was able to flatten it out. And he likes to hit the ball at its high point. He likes it shoulder level, higher than most players like to hit their forehand. But because he was able to hit it flat and come on top of it, he kind of got that angle and that trajectory high over the net, that you would get almost on a serve. And that really helped him in flattening out his forehand. One of his shots that I thought he hit really well was whenever he was able to hit the ball at its high point and go over the lowest part of the net, which would always be, if he ran around it, cross court, inside out. If he didn't, then just, flat out cross court. I think he was really able to use almost like a good, like, flat trajectory on his forehand. And he was able to use the lowest point of the net and kind of place the ball really close to the line. But good variation of spin on his forehand, also mixed in some drop shots. So overall, this is a guy who can dictate with his forehand and can do so with consistency and can really just keep the pressure on. So I'm just really impressed with his forehand all in all. His backhand, I gave it a B. A little bit lower of a score on that one. And what I saw on that is he hits it with a lot of shape and a lot of consistency. His consistency, I gave him a B+. I think when he mishit it, he didn't hit quite as clean on his backhand, I noticed. But when he hits it clean, it's like, he really doesn't miss when he hits it clean. By the way, that's true on his forehand too. But unlike his forehand, it's a very long swing. It's the kind of swing that you can almost tell he grew up on clay. By the way, he grew up on clay. He's got that big long cut, and he hits it very high, very loopy. And I ball boyed at the U.S. Open. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. I ball boyed at the U.S. Open for 2 years, and that means that I did qualifying for a week before the 2 week, the tournament, main tournament. And people sometimes used to ask me, what was the biggest difference between the pros who were in the main draw and the qualifiers? And I think one of the biggest differences was the qualifiers hit a much straighter ball. The main draw guys hit a much straighter ball. The qualifiers tend to hit a much loopier ball. It's good for consistency. It's good for juniors. Starting out, it's good to get good shape on the ball. You're going to be more consistent that way. But the top players are able to, not sacrifice spin, but kind of just hit a much more like a laser, less like a grenade. You know what I mean? Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. Less shape. Shape is good, but at a certain point you get to the highest level of the men's game. Federer doesn't hit with shape. Nadal only hits with shape when he's defending or trading. Otherwise, he's not hitting with shape. No one's hitting with shape. Best players don't really use shape. It's more of a straight ball, a frozen rope, and then it dips down because of the topspin at the end. That's just how it is. So on clay, you get the benefit of that high bounce. So to me, my impressions of that backhand was it just looked like a very clay court backhand. And I'm concerned about how that translates to other surfaces, how that backhand translates. So that's kind of why I gave it a B. My weapon grade, like how well can he dictate with it, I give it a C-. I think that, what's good about one thing that's good about it is he can go cross court or line, and he can mix it up really, really well. So if he gets a player out of position, he can certainly go line and do some damage with that backhand, or vice versa if his opponent is out of position. But he just doesn't have enough firepower in that backhand to do a lot of damage if, I guess, unless he gets his opponent out of position, and then he can do some damage. But that's okay. You don't need to have a backhand that does a lot of damage. The most important thing here is that his backhand is really consistent, and that, he just doesn't make a lot of errors there. My concern is, will it be attacked on other surfaces? On the clay, he's a little bit safer. Will it be attacked on other surfaces? That's why it gets a B in my book. Okay, let's see what's next. Serve. Serve is a B. It's a little bit hard to tell on clay, unfortunately. It's just kind of, it's hard to tell with serving and returning on the clay because, it's just Returning's a lot easier, serving's a lot harder. So what I'll say on his serve, it looked pretty good. A B is pretty good. But I do think at 6'3", I think he can probably take the shot, to a little bit of a higher level by, especially on the first serve, by going into the court a little bit more, jumping into the court. His ball toss seemed to be very centralized above his head, and he got good leg drive going upwards, but I feel like he didn't drive into the court. I don't know why the court is that way. Oh, I know why, because I'm a righty, so of course I'm going to serve it that way. So the court is that way. So yeah, I'd like to see like a guy like Isner does it so well, toss it a little bit further into the court and really try to get some body weight going towards where you're trying to serve the ball. So I feel like that's something I noticed technically on his serve that he could possibly improve. The second serve was pretty consistent. Once again, like on the second serve on other surfaces, maybe if you have a weaker second serve, it could get attacked. On clay, it's just a lot harder to attack a second serve. So I give it a B here, but a lot of that is sort of uncertainty on my part. Okay. Movement, B+. He's really fast when he gets going. Like if you run a 40-yard dash, my sense was that he's got a lot of speed once he kind of gets going. How quick is he? That's a different story. I'm not quite sure. I think he might be a little bit middling on the acceleration and the quickness, but certainly once he got, those long strides, once he got those long legs going, I thought he was very fast. And on clay, he's a very natural mover. Once again, the clay is kind of impeding my ability to evaluate him because normally on the clay you're going to have a little bit more time, to get your legs moving towards the ball. It's going to be less so about quickness, more so about speed. And he's such a natural mover on the clay that his movement was really, really good. How well does it translate to other surfaces? I'm not quite sure, which is why he gets a B+, because his movement looked really good on the clay, and especially when he got himself into a full sprint. Next, we got the volley, C-, not good at all. His volleys weren't good at all. When he did put away volleys, often it took him 2 tries. So he'd hit a volley, kind of give a chance at a pass for his opponent, and then he'd have to put it away on the second volley. Not quite ideal. Whenever he got a tough volley, he seemed to miss it. So his volleys aren't really any good. It happens, This is a new age right now. And then lastly, his mental. His shot selection was great. Mainly his patience. I loved his patience. So important. This is why he had success, is because he was able to dictate with his forehand with consistency by playing close to the lines, really placing the ball wherever he wanted. He was able to limit the errors on his backhand, and he was able to really play much cleaner tennis than elite, in the team match especially. In the Carreno Busta match, I saw he had more winners. So, maybe he was playing a little bit more offensively in that one. But his mental, he also, by the way, he went down early in the team match, stayed positive. Not one to show that much emotion, I don't think. But, so, everything I saw from him mentally checked out. Hit some good drop shots, had a good feel for the court. I really liked his shot selection, and I'm a stickler for shot selection, as you guys know. But I really did think his shot selection was good. So all in all, he's got the frame, he's got the body, 6'3", good athlete, hits the ball clean. We could have something special on our hands. My biggest concern is that there were a lot of things that I saw that seemed a little bit clay courty. And that might be him playing clay court tennis, right? So maybe it's just, him playing on a clay court. I have to see him play on other surfaces and see if that stuff kind of, changes or stays the same. Like on his return, for example, he likes to stand really far back and take really big cuts at the ball. How do I know how good a returner he is if he's playing like that? Because that you can only do that on clay. Did he do that well? Yeah. But I really love his forehand. Mixes up spins, placement exceptional, exceptionally consistent, hits the ball clean, moves well. What is not to like? How excited are you guys about Stefanos Tsitsipas? I don't love saying his name, but I'm going to get used to it. You know what? No, I enjoy the challenge of saying his name. It's a really cool name, actually. Greek names are very cool. If I have any Greek viewers of this video, tell me, how big of a deal is he in Greece? How excited did you guys get over this Barcelona run? What's his personality like? Because if you're a Greek tennis fan, you've probably been following him longer. These are also important things that I'd be curious to know. I like this kid. Let's see what he's able to do for the rest of the clay court season. Past the 20-minute mark, that's our video. Tell me if you want more videos like this, these report card type videos, where I'm just kind of evaluating younger players, or players that at least kind of burst onto the scene, because I can certainly do more of this. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.